Hi everyone! I know I haven't done an update in a long time, and that's because I've been busy, and I finally had my baby, and I know I should have made an update for my doctor appointment, but I wasn't feeling very good. I was still pregnant actually at that doctor appointment. I did make it to that doctor appointment. And just a quick update to that was that I went there that Friday, and there really wasn't much change, but she decided to strip my membranes. I did have the baby monitor on me, and everything looked good. And what do you call it? Yeah, so she had said I was 2 centimeters dilated, but not really in any kind of labor or anything like that, and that I had to schedule an induction because it was getting to the point where I was almost 41 weeks and nothing was happening. So I actually scheduled an induction for this. It was this past Tuesday night, December 17th. I had to go in at night and have something called Cervidil placed inside of my vagina to help do something to the cervix, and then in the morning on the 18th I was going to have Pitocin. So let's just say I never made it to that doctor appointment or the hospital, the induction. I didn't need to be induced, which is such a relief because I was really worried. Because she decided to strip my membranes, I started having some labor pains that right soon after that, and it was getting worse, but it was coming and going. And the next day, which was Saturday, the 14th, I started getting contractions all day, and I was just like ready to have the baby. I thought that was it, that was the day, and but it was just coming and going, pretty bad contractions. So by like that night, I was having like contractions every like 10 to 15 minutes, but they were fluctuating, and it was progressively getting worse, but I was trying to wait for it to be 5 minutes apart, because they were like, when it's 5 minutes apart, then you have to call us and then you can come to the hospital. So I was waiting the entire time for that to happen. But yeah, it actually around 9 o'clock at night, I was feeling pretty good. I was like, okay, I think that this is going away. And I was kind of like really scared too, because I wanted to get this over with. I wanted to have the baby. I was really sick and tired of being pregnant, and I was just so done. It was just, I was in such agony at that point. I could not do anything. I was literally just laying around the house, like lounging. I couldn't even sit anymore because my cervix was killing me. So around 1:45 in the morning, I started having contractions every 5 minutes. So at that point, I called the doctor's office, and I got somebody to call me back, and they told me to come into the hospital and to get checked. So, mind you, I am in New York. There was a snowstorm. We had a huge snowstorm. The hospital that I have to go to is not close at all. It is quite far. I would say at least like 20-30 minutes it takes to get there, because there's only like one route to get there. So with a snowstorm, it wasn't actually so bad. It only took about a half an hour to get there in the snowstorm. So yeah, we were like the only car on the road, and the roads were not plowed. It was quite dangerous, actually. I was very, very nervous getting there. We couldn't see out of the windshield. It was just so icy. It was like icy rain coming down. It was like the worst night possible to be having to go to the hospital when you're going to give birth. It was just the worst, or the worst morning. It was actually very early in the morning. It was, by the time we left, it was around 2:30 a.m. and we got there around 3 a.m. So we got there at 3 a.m. and they checked me, and the doctor on staff had checked me, and I was 2 centimeters dilated. But because I had told him that I was 2 centimeters dilated on Friday, he decided that there wasn't much of a change, and that I should probably get Pitocin when they check me. He said that he was going to check me at 8 a.m. So he made me sign a paper. Not made me, but he gave me a paper for permission for Pitocin. Biggest mistake of my life. I should have never signed that paper because I was trusting him that that was a just in case type of thing. But I'll just let you know that I didn't need the Pitocin after all, but it is a mistake, like signing any papers before you need anything, just to let you know, because it almost gives them the right to do whatever they want to do, even if you disagree, because I didn't really want the Pitocin to begin with. And yeah, so just an FYI. So anyway, let's see. So yeah, so they admitted me at that point. I went into the labor and delivery unit. I had my own room, which was really nice. The contractions were really, really bad. I did not want to have an epidural. Around 6 o'clock in the morning, I was in excruciating agony. I was getting to a point where I was really, really tired and having a really hard time dealing with the contractions, the pain of the contractions. So I did ask for something, and they gave me something called Stadol, which kind of makes you feel loopy. They put it in your IV, and I would say it's the equivalent of being really, really, really drunk, except without feeling like you're going to puke. The room was spinning. I was feeling kind of nice, like how you feel like when you're drunk. You don't really feel, you feel a little bit numb. I was having contractions, but they were like mild. I wasn't feeling them because I felt numb. My body felt sort of numb. So that kind of helped me. I was trying to rest while I was on it, but it was weird. It felt like I was hallucinating. Like I was drowsy. I was closing my eyes, but I wasn't really sleeping. It's almost like I wasn't able to fall asleep being on that drug. It was very weird, but it definitely helped me. Around 7 o'clock in the morning is when the nurses changed shifts. So now I got a different nurse after 7 a.m. So around 7:20, I would say, being in this stupor that I was with the medicine, I started feeling really horrible contractions. And there's a clock on the wall, so I would, obviously awaken or open my eyes, and I would notice that it was every 5 minutes, and it was progressively getting worse. So by the time I felt like the medicine had completely wore off, mind you, the nurse had said that the medicine should last 2 to 3 hours, and it only lasted an hour and 20 minutes with me. I was buzzing the buzzer, asking the nurse, I need medicine, the pain is getting worse, I can't deal with it, hurry up. And it was like she never came. I don't know if it just felt like a million years because I was in so much pain, but yeah, it just was horrible. And then all of a sudden I noticed the new nurse came in. The new nurse was not very nice. She was actually quite nasty. She was very demanding. She was very bossy, and she was trying to push me around, and I was not having that. I was like, I did not want to be pushed around. And she was like, you need to have the Pitocin. And I was like, but I don't want the Pitocin. I'm like, my contractions are really, really bad. And she's like, well, we want to see, you're only 2 centimeters dilated. And she didn't even check me at that point and already made a decision that I was going to get the Pitocin at 8 a.m. I said to her, the doctor was supposed to come in here and check me to see if I've progressed. So she was like, well, do you want a nurse to check you? And I was like, yeah, of course I want somebody to check me before we make a decision like that. So she checked me, and she was like, you're only 2 to 3 centimeters. So I'm going to go get the Pitocin. And I was like arguing with her. I'm like, but I don't want to have, I'm like, my contractions are like every, they're pretty good. They're really strong. I mean, I was feeling them progressively getting sharper. They were to the point where they were agonizing. On a scale from 1 to 10, they felt like 100. It was like the worst pain of my life, and I've had 2 other children, and nothing compares to the contractions that I was having this time around. And so she had said to me, you know what, I'm going to give you about 20 minutes and come back and check you. Because I was like begging her. I was like, I don't want the epidural. If I get the Pitocin, And, you know, if the pain feels like this, I'm going to need the epidural because I can't even deal with this pain. Never mind with medication on top of it. I'm going to have the epidural. I don't want that. And she's like, do you want an anesthesiologist to come in and talk to you? And I was like, no, I don't. I don't want to have that done. You know, she just didn't understand. She just was pretty much insisting. And I had no doctor in there to even talk to discuss this with. I was actually arguing with the nurse. The nurse was making the decision. So this was like the worst experience because I had signed that paper for Pitocin. She pretty much thought that she had the right to give it to me regardless of me not seeing the doctor first. And so I was actually crying from frustration. My husband was there and he was just like, if, you know, you're not progressing, just get the Pitocin. You need to do what you have to do. You got to get the epidural then. And I just was like arguing. I was just arguing with them, saying that I don't want this. I know that I don't need it. I'm fine. My contractions are really bad. I don't need the medicine. And it was like they weren't listening. Like the nurse wasn't listening or whatever. So she said, all right, I'll give you 20 minutes. I'll come back. As soon as she left the room, I said to my husband, get me out of this bed. I had to go to the bathroom very badly. I had to pee really badly. They had me hooked up to all these things. I needed help to get unhooked. I had to drag the IV pole with me, which was very difficult. I went into the bathroom and as I was having contractions, it was just, everything was feeling like it was just squeezing and uncontrollable. Like I just felt, you know, like everything would just, I don't know, it just felt really weird. Just an uncontrollable feeling, like you have to go to the bathroom but you don't. And I just sat on the toilet, which was, you know, elevated. It's pretty high, the toilet. And sitting on there with the position I was in, having the contractions just was helping. And I noticed at that point that I was bleeding a lot. I was just bleeding quite heavily, like more heavily than I was before that. I was having contraction after contraction. I could not get off the toilet. I was having a hard time. At one point I had 2 contractions on there and I decided to get off. And then at that point my husband had left the room. He was like, you know what, I'll be back, because obviously nothing's happening yet. And then the nurse at that point had come back. And when she came back, she insisted that I come back to the bed. And she was like, come on, let's go. Come back to the bed. And I was trying to, and I had to stop and go back on the toilet. It just was like only relief that I had at that moment was to go to that toilet. And so I had done that, and she was kind of like getting angrier with me. And then finally, like, I made my way back to the bed, but I couldn't even get in the bed. I was having another contraction. It was like they were coming every minute at that point. And it was like, for me, getting out of the bed and moving around was helping me. It was actually making the labor progress because laying in the bed was not helping. And I got back in the bed, finally. She told me to lay on my side. She was massaging my lower spine every time I was having a contraction, which was helping. Of course, she was, at that point, put the oxygen mask on me because she was saying I wasn't breathing correctly, or I don't know what the problem was. And, I said to her, I had a really bad contraction after it was just continuous. And I said to her, I have such an urge to push. Like, it feels like she's going to come out. I feel, you know, such pressure down there. So she was like, okay, I'll check you. So she checks me at that point, and she's like, wow, you're 5 to 6 centimeters. Like, with that last push, I went to 5 to 6. And then she was like, you know what? That's it. The doctor, I'm going to call the doctor right now because you're going to 10 centimeters like any second, and you're going to be delivering this baby. So I literally went from 2 to 3 centimeters to 5 to 6, and then 8 to 10 within minutes. Like, I think it was like a 15-minute time span. At that point, my husband was still not back. It was like a long way to get out of the building, so it would take a while, you know, for him to even walk back up. I was screaming for him. I was like, where's my husband? Because I didn't realize that I was going to have this baby any second. And so they gave me my cell phone, and they were like, you want to call him? I was like, yes, I want to call him. And the only thing I could say was, come here now. and that's the only thing I could get out. I barely had the energy to even say that, and I realized after I hung up the phone that he probably had no idea that I was ready to give birth. I should have been like more clear and said, you know what, this baby's coming right now, get here right now. I was so afraid. I was crying that he wouldn't be there. I felt like every single second was a year. It was just like the longest time span. And they called the doctor in. We had the pediatric nurse come in. Everything was prepped and ready. And at that point, my husband finally got there. I had to do this all by myself without any medication at this point, which I understood and I knew. And the thing is that it was such a horrible and difficult delivery this time around. This is my third child, and this was the worst delivery ever, because I felt like, first of all, I was pushing from, like, if you're at a race, if you're in a race and you're at the start line and you have to get to the finish line, and if you're beginning at the start line, it's a lot longer to get to the finish line. And, with my other two daughters, like, I felt like I was already near the finish line by the time I had to give birth to them. With her, I was at the starting line, so I had to hurdle my way through to get her out. And I started pushing, and, it was just the most difficult thing, because I felt like she was so, far from coming out. But it didn't take that long. I think it was only a couple minutes that I pushed her out. I might have pushed, I would say four times or so, but, really, really hard. And I ended up, after she came out, I remember what happened was, my water never broke. I guess her head was there, because I remember the doctor checking me at that point, and he was like, yeah, you're ready to go. I remember him kind of, doing something down there. I'm not sure. I felt like he was touching her head, but I believe that he was probably puncturing the placenta, or the amniotic sac. Not the placenta, the amniotic sac, I believe. And her head was there, right there, and there was no fluid coming out at that point. And I remember I pushed really, really hard to get her head out, and then I remember pushing again to get her shoulders out. And once her shoulders were out, I felt the rush of the water coming out with her. So I feel like she was kind of plugging up everything, and she was in the way of the water. The water could not come out. So, and then I remember her being on me, and I remember feeling a pinching sensation, and I looked down. This was after the placenta had come out. I just remember feeling pinching, and I looked down, and I'm, looking at the doctor, and I'm like, ow, I'm like, what is that? And realized that he was sewing me up, and that he had given me an episiotomy. I had asked him, what are you doing? Why are you sewing me up? And he was like, well, I had to give you an episiotomy. There was no other option. And so at that point, I realized that I also had an episiotomy. So I'm like, okay, great. So I had that, and really, really bad, I want to say, hemorrhoids from pushing her out. It's really bad. So the last couple of days I've been recuperating. I got to go home 2 days later from the hospital after I delivered her. So I had her on Sunday, December 15th at 9:05 a.m. She weighed 6 pounds, 15 ounces, and she was 19 inches long. And that's a pretty big girl, for me, anyway. And I was just about 41 weeks pregnant. I was actually 40 weeks and 6 days, so I'm rounding it to 41 weeks because I deserved the 41. It was really, really difficult and long, but she's here. Her name is Violet Hope, and she's just the most precious little thing. And I'm so excited and relieved that it's over with, and that I am, healing. I'm feeling a little bit better every single day, and it's just one of those experiences that, it was a traumatizing delivery for me, and labor, but it's so worth it. I mean, it's hard for me to say right now that, the pain was worth it, but I know that in the end, I had to do that in order to get her, and have her here, and she's super healthy. She is just thriving. There's absolutely nothing. She didn't need to go, into a NICU. She didn't have any congestion or anything like that. She was just perfect. She's just perfect. There's nothing wrong with her, and she's just the sweetest little thing. And I wanted to update everybody on what was going on. I know that it's been a long time since I made a video, and it's just really difficult when you're trying to get into the groove of things and figure out how to take care of a baby in addition to the things that you usually do. So I'm learning again how to do everything. I have 2 big sister helpers. They absolutely love her. They are in love with her. They fight over who's going to take care of her, who's going to hold her. They don't really feed her because I'm breastfeeding her. I've given her a couple bottles here and there, like my husband, if he wants to feed her, the little ones that they give you in the hospital. So I've been able to take a little break, but sleeping is kind of difficult right now, and getting into that routine. But she does sleep a lot, like you see right now. And I'll do updates, I guess weekly updates of how she's doing and how I'm doing for my postpartum. So I guess I will try to do one, same thing like I was doing with the pregnancy vlogs, like once a week. So she will be, right now she's 5 days old, so she'll be a week on Sunday. And I'm so excited. She's the best Christmas gift I've ever gotten. It is such a joyous season this year, and I have so much to be grateful for, and I'm so happy right now you cannot understand. And just wanted to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you with my next update. So yeah, I don't know if you could see her. She's sleeping right now. I'll probably do another video where you can see like a collage of pictures of her from when I gave birth to her. Yeah, so I just wanted to do that really quick. She's not even like dressed up or anything. I just comfy clothes. Alright, take care. Bye.